What's up, Dragon Brood? So continuing in our series of new decks for Phyrexia All Will Be One, we're going to be taking a look at 3 creature themed decks. Now, this is to follow up on our 3 Gruul decks that we just did, but what we're doing here for the preseason is decks that are grouped by color types or themes, and maybe that fills a different void or need and lets you check out 3 decks at once instead of 1 in a video. But let's hop right in and take a look at what our 3 decks are today that we're going to talk about. If y'all would be so kind as to hit that join button down below, that would be great. Or check out any of the merchandise or any of our sponsors, especially Ultra Pro. They have some cool stuff coming out on February 10th for all the Phyrexia stuff, completed Planeswalkers, all that. You should check it out. Okay, so this time, this is going to look a bit different than our last video. For this one, I'm trying to use Moxfield because I can show this stuff a little bit better than I could using AetherHub because we don't have all this in Arena yet. So I'm doing the best I can to take care of y'all. But we'll still highlight all the cards as needed because there are some new cards we're going to be talking about. But here, the first deck, we're going to be looking at Jodah Legends. And this is actually a variant that you've probably seen over the last season or two. Lots of cool new legends coming out every set, and you kind of come back to this deck and decide like what new stuff fits in here. We did get a couple of key pieces though. So starting at the very beginning here, we do have Skrelv, I believe that's how you say it, the Defector Mite. And for those of you who don't know what Skrelv is, I'm actually popping these up here in the lower corner, so hopefully y'all will be able to see everything. But Skrelv's a pretty cool card because it's a 1-mana 1/1. It is legendary. It has Toxic, so when you deal damage, you get to put poison. But the bigger thing is you can pay 1 mana or 2 life, because it's Phyrexian mana, tap it, choose a color, and then another target creature you control gains protection from that color effectively. Basically hexproof from that color, but also can't be blocked by that color. Which is actually pretty damn cool, because this is another way to protect your key creatures. If you have one of these out already, you can protect a Jodah, which is pretty awesome. And it's one of those cards too that we, like in previous versions, you were kind of looking for a 1-mana thing that was worth playing. This actually fits the bill. It's not just playing it just to play it. It actually has a real ability that matters. So this is actually really cool. This is something the stack was really looking forward to. We're playing 3 copies of Hajar in this. Again, it's another way to protect your your legendary creatures by sacking this, giving them all +1/+0 and indestructible. Catilda, we do have mostly humans in this list, so Catilda works out great, giving you the ability to ramp up, even just get to an early Jodah, potentially, if you get the right lands out. Then we have Melira. This is one that I think snuck through in the preview season for a lot of people, but Melira is actually pretty cool. It's a 2-mana 2/2. If you get any poison counters, instead you just get 1 and you don't get any additional poison that turn. So if you do run into a poison deck, you won't get more than 1 poison counter a turn, which is pretty sweet. But you can also sacrifice this and then another target creature or choose another artifact or creature you control. And then when it's put into a graveyard this turn, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So again, another way to protect your thing. So now we have 9 cards already, or actually 8 cards already in this list that can protect any of your other legends, which is actually pretty cool. So this gives this deck a little bit more resilience than it had before. We're going to play Thalia. I think we all know what this is. We see it a lot. Playing some Adeline. Playing Gwenna, 3 copies because Gwenna is great, can get any colors, makes it easier to cast all your big stuff. We're going to play 2 Lagrella because it exiles things. It's a little bit of creature removal because we don't really have much in here. And then we have Miglos. This is a pretty cool card. It's a 3-mana 4/4, but it does come into play with 5 oil counters on it, sorry. And you can remove 1, 2, or 3 oil counters and pay that much mana to either give it Vigilance and Menace, which we probably won't do that often. Give it +2/+2, which is nice. But being able to kill an artifact and enchantment is really, really good in this list, because we didn't have cards that made sense that fit into this list to do that before. So now you at least have a card. Now, granted, it's only a couple of copies, but it at least lets you get rid of problematic cards that you couldn't before with this list. So what this set really brought to this deck is giving us the options for more versatility that we didn't have before, and that's actually really neat. As far as the 4-mana spells, we're going to be playing 2 Urtai Resurrected, just to kill things and counter stuff. Of course, we have Alana and Elena because this card's bananas. We're playing 2 Wandering Emperor just for some extra removal because we don't have much in this list. And then we're going to play, of course, full set of 4 Jodah because why not? And we're going to play one Thrun, Breaker of Silence. Thrun's actually just really good. 5/5 for 5. Basically unkillable on your turn. I mean, like, it's a really good card, and it has trample. So, of course, if you get this with Jodah out or whatever, it's going to be a big body with trample and hard to kill on top of it. But when you combine this with all our other cards, now you're not as afraid to play the Jodah knowing it's going to die. You have ways to protect it, even from sweepers, because, you know, unless it's a, I don't know, farewell or something, you can actually protect your legends a lot better now than we could before. So I think these new cards are going to go a long way toward helping out. Now, as far as the lands go, we're not doing anything too flashy, but I will point out that we are going to play 4 Secluded Courtyard and 4 Plaza of Heroes, just because we have, obviously, all legends and another way to protect our legends with Plaza of Heroes, but also all but, I think, 3 of the creatures are humans, so it makes sense to go ahead and play Secluded Courtyard. And we did get some other lands that were pretty helpful, but we didn't really squeeze them in here other than Copperline Gorge, just because it's green heavy, gives us a little bit of red. We do have a few cards that need that, so it's not a big deal. The rest of the way are just some pain lands, the special lands, Sekinjin, Iganjo. Nothing really to write home about, just quality overall on your lands. And that's the other thing too, not to be undersold, in Phyrexia All Will Be One, we actually got a lot more multi-lands, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get the other 5 fast multi-lands in the next set. So if you want to play something like this, the mana's almost become the easy part. All right, next up is a pretty interesting one in Naya Elves. And this one's a tough one because we didn't really get much, but we got a little bit. And I don't know if that little bit helps us out enough or not, but let's talk about it. So here we're going to start with 2 copies. And let me go and bring that up for you, because these are cards that people probably don't play with much. But we're going to start with 2 copies of Sentinel Stalwart. I'm not a huge fan of this card, but it does help our mana a little bit, which could be important. But it is a 1 mana 1/1. You can tap it and another artifact or creature to get a mana of any color, which could help with you ramping a little bit on the first couple of turns. Because you could play this on turn 1, maybe you play a 2 mana thing on turn 2, you tap both of these, and then you play a 1 mana thing, and now you're kind of off to the races a little bit. So we'll see. Then we have Land of War Stalker. This one's actually not too bad whenever you play another creature. This gets +1/+0 till end of turn. Not huge, but enough that it could be a nuisance. So we're going to go ahead and run with the full set of those. And then one of the new cards we actually got here was Branchlight Stalker. Now, it is toxic too, but I don't think we're really ever going to worry about the poison, really. But it's a 3/1 for 2, so it does give you a little bit of an upswing, sizable beater that you didn't have before, which is kind of nice, and it can block some significant stuff in the early going. So even that little bit, I think, could go a long way toward helping this deck. And now from the last set, we actually had Fauna Shaman, who happens to be an elf, which I think people forget, so we're going to go ahead and play a couple of copies of that. Of course, because we're playing elves, we're going to play a full set of 4 Leaf Crowned Visionary. Going to play some Lightning Strike, because we got to have some removal. Though I will say, as I started putting this video together, I realized this might be a case where this might need to be the 5 damage instant, because this deck's going to have a real problem with something like Shieldred. That is a legit concern. Not saying you can't beat her, but it's going to be tough sometimes. So it's something to think about. Even if you maybe want to split 2 and 2 here, I think would be a reasonable option. We are going to play 2 Loam Speaker just as a way to get another body if we need it. But again, does help with our mana, and it is a 3 toughness thing, which is pretty good. Because we're able to do all this, though, we do get to play Yavimaya Iconoclast, so we can kick it fairly often with no big issues. We're going to play 3 Brazen Upstart. Now, this isn't the best card in the world, but I will say this. Credit to this card, it does have Vigilance. It's a 4/2. There's a few ways we can make it into being like a 5/3, so that's not bad. And then when it dies, you get to look at the top of cards of your library, find another creature. So even if your board gets swept, you can kind of reset your hand a little bit, which is pretty nice. We are going to play 2 copies of King Darien Extra Large the 8th, but mostly just so we can give all of our elves +1/+1. It's the one card in there that's not really an elf, but it does help our team and gives us another body. The other ability of being able to protect tokens isn't really relevant here. It's just another good thing we can get to that's playable and aggressive while still pumping our team. And mana shouldn't be an issue. We're going to play 1 copy of Rocco, Cabaretti Caterer. This also happens to be an elf, believe it or not. It's an elf druid. The cool part about this is, though, if you are able to play it for 5 or 6, you can go get your Leaf Crown Visionary, or you can go get the King, and then that way you're getting a 4-2 body effectively and pumping the rest of your team, which is pretty significant. So we kind of using it as a tutor to just go help keep our team alive. Truthfully, I wouldn't even be that opposed to possibly cutting an upstart and playing an extra Rocco in here, realistically. Wouldn't even be surprised if I end up doing that somewhere along the way if we play this at the season start. And then the best elf I think that exists in Standard right now is Fleetfoot Dancer. This is a 4-mana 4/4, trample, lifelink, haste, real simple text box, 3 keywords, just does what it's supposed to do. And with the lands, we're not doing anything special other than playing Secluded Courtyard, because again, it's theme deck, we have a bunch of elves. Everything else are just lands that produce green, red, or white. So nothing really to write home about, it just kind of is what it is. But like I said, I think there's a reasonable argument to be made to maybe even play 2 Rocco and just 2 of the upstart, potentially, and give yourself more room to make sure you have that, the Lord or one of the things to pump your creatures out there earlier in the game. And this brings us to our third list, which is Clerics. People seem to like the Orzhov Clerics list, and this is going to look largely the same, though we do have a couple of key pieces from the new set that did make their way into here, so let's talk about those. But we're going to start with for Lunarch Veteran because it's a cleric. It's the one's going to show up in every cleric deck, right? And gaining incremental life, to be truthful, is actually very good. We do have some stuff that cares about getting life, but also even against like mono red or whatever, if you get them to waste a removal on this and not something else, that's usually going to be a win for you anyway. We're back to checking out Skrelv because Skrelv, again, does the things we want to do. We want to protect some of our key cards that are going to help move the game forward. So this becomes a card your opponent kind of has to deal with before they deal with your other things. It does have Toxic, but again, we're probably not going to worry about that in this list. We're going to play 3 copies of LSL Core. You have a creature come into play, you gain life. You have a creature die, your opponent loses a life. Pretty easy. Playing some Go for the Throats, playing 3 copies of Phyrexian Missionary, playing 4 Shadowrite Priests so we can pump our team, but also the ability to go search for another priest or another creature by sacrificing a cleric. And that's actually pretty key here because there are some big things we want to go get. Playing 4 Voice of the Blessed because we have several ways to gain life. Even so far from what we've seen, we've got 4, 7, 11 ways already. Actually 10 ways to gain life already just there. One of the new cards though that randomly kind of snuck its way through in preview season that happens to be a cleric is an X Sentry. This is kind of like a brutal Cathar of sorts for clerics, but this does have Toxic. Again, maybe because we have 2 toxic creatures, but I don't think it's really going to matter. We have a 1/4, and whenever it comes into play, it exiles an artifact or creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less until this goes away. So again, get stuff out of the way, keep attacking, do your thing, but it can get rid of problematic artifacts. Like there is possible maybe your opponent plays like a Celestis and you can tuck a Celestis under here until later. That's not a bad thing either. We are going to play Anointed Peacekeeper. I think this is another one that people forget as a cleric, but this card is very problematic for a lot of opponents, especially if you want to stop sweepers or key removal cards or a big combo piece or whatever. This card's great for that. Just buying you an extra turn or 2 sometimes is all you really need. We're going to play 1 copy of In the Trenches because it just pumps our team, and that's pretty big. We could pay 6 and exile something. I don't know how often we'll really do that. It's mostly just for the creature bonus. We're playing 4 Inspiring Overseer, Flyer, gain a life, draw a card. And then our 2 big cards is we're playing Lisa, Forgotten Archangel. Flying lifelink, whenever a creature dies, it goes back to our hand at the end of turn. If your opponent has anything die, it's exiled instead. But the other thing that's not a cleric that's hanging on the list is Toxtrol. And the reason we're playing the 1 Toxtrol, well, 1, it's not bad if you just draw it late in the game. But because we have the Shadowrite Priest, we can actually sacrifice something else, go get Toxtrol, and try to start locking the game up in some of those matchups. So you want something big you can go get that hopefully helps you out. So this is going to fill that need here in this list. Again, lands, we're not doing too much, but because it is a theme deck, we are going to go ahead and play Secluded Courtyard because we do have a bunch of clerics. We have 4 things that aren't. We're not going to really worry about it. Like our other lands are going to take care of all that. Otherwise, lands are what you think. Nothing real special going on there. But if you're going to play clerics, this is one way we can do it, and it doesn't look too drastically different from a version we played early last season or maybe the season before. So the only difference is, obviously, we're playing the new cards from Phyrexia All Will Be One, but it's really cool because it does give us a different type of removal. And then you get Skrelv, who can protect like a big Voice of the Blessed or even Eliza, and really just make it problematic for your opponent, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, and Anointed Peacekeeper, I think it's just a great card in this list that I don't even remember if I played it in the last version, but having played with the card a little bit, it obviously belongs in this type of deck. One of the things I'd like to know is, did you like that setup with like the card appearing over in that corner? I guess it was. And you know, was this informative for you? Was this good just looking for deck types that you would like to play or not? Curious, because this is something all new. We're trying something altogether different. But I will say, if you enjoyed this video, or if you're looking for other deck lists, be sure to check out this other video I have with the Gruul list, where you get to play 3 different types and get ready for the new season. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.